Manchester United's midfield rebuild is already 3 names deep, and by the time you finish this video, you'll understand why one of those names might already be dead. Let's start with the one nobody expected to still be a story, Marcus Rashford, because right now, at this exact moment, his Manchester United future is still unresolved, and it's split reporters right down the middle. On one side, sources close to the situation say Rashford still dreams of a permanent move back to Barcelona after his loan spell there. On the other side, United have reportedly become more open to keeping Rashford after struggling to identify a suitable replacement for him. Sit with that for a second. 2 completely different futures, both being reported as live possibilities at the same time by different outlets. And here's the detail that changes everything. According to Sport, Rashford himself confirmed to media this week that nothing will happen with his situation until his involvement at the World Cup finishes. So this isn't United stalling, this is Rashford stalling. He's the one holding the decision hostage until the tournament ends. Think about what that means for Michael Carrick's planning. You can't build a squad around a player whose own intentions are frozen behind an international tournament. But wait, because there's a second twist buried inside all of this. Reports out this week connect his situation directly to Kobbie Mainoo, suggesting whatever happens with Mainoo could actually shift Carrick's stance on Rashford entirely. One domino knocking into another. Keep that in your head, because we're going to come back to how these stories interlock later. Sky Sports, Sky Sports. Now let's talk about why United even need Rashford's situation resolved quickly, because their midfield rebuild just hit a wall. United's first midfield signing of the summer is basically done. Atalanta's Ederson, according to Fabrizio Romano, was already, here we go, confirmed weeks ago, with reports of a medical completed in New York. 1 down. But signing 2 and 3 has turned into a genuine scramble. United went after Elliot Anderson, missed him. Went after Sandro Tonali, missed him too. Then they zeroed in hard on West Ham's FERNANDES, treating him as the priority target. And this is where it gets brutal, because United were beaten to Fernandes' signature by Tottenham, with Spurs reportedly ready to pay around £85 million, a figure United were not prepared to match. 3 midfield targets, 3 misses. On paper, that should be a disaster for a club this size. But here's the twist. United didn't panic. They pivoted immediately. Because according to Ben Jacobs, the moment Fernandes fell through, United officials had already lined up alternatives, and a fresh 6-man midfield wish list emerged featuring Alex Scott, Aurelien Tchouameni, Sander Berge, and Carlos Baleba. But 2 names on that list matter more than the rest. Let's start with the one causing the most noise. Alex Scott of Bournemouth. 22 years old, press-resistant, exactly the profile modern midfields are built around. And United are reportedly circling hard. Here's where it turns tense fast. Manchester United have made direct contact for Scott, but Bournemouth have already told interested clubs they don't wish to sell. Arsenal already found that out the hard way. Andrea Berta made an approach on Arsenal's behalf and was informed flatly that Bournemouth have no intention of discussing a transfer. Rejected, just like that. So why are United still pushing? Because Bournemouth's stance isn't quite as locked as it sounds. Bournemouth offered Scott a new contract back in March or April, and the plan is for him to eventually sign fresh terms, likely with a release clause built in, or simply continue on his existing deal. That release clause detail is the whole ballgame. It doesn't slam the door, it just sets the price. And that price, according to multiple outlets now, sits right around £80 million. Read Man United +2. But hold on, because there's a wrinkle here that most fans have completely missed. One account, claiming to be run by a group of trusted reporters, put out a report saying United had already submitted a £59 million bid for Scott and that it was turned down flat. Sounds huge, right? Except journalist Ben Jacobs pushed back directly on that number, saying his understanding is that the real figure Bournemouth want is £80 million, and that no decision on any sale will be made before Bournemouth actually sit down with Scott himself. That's a £21 million gap between what one account claims and what a trusted insider says is actually true. Classic transfer window noise. Somebody's wrong, and it's probably not the guy with the track record. And just when you think this is a 2-club race, it isn't. Liverpool could enter the picture too, because manager Andoni Iraola worked with Scott previously at Bournemouth and remains a fan. Manchester City and Chelsea are also watching from a distance, so you've got 4 Premier League clubs circling one midfielder, a release clause that hasn't been signed yet, and a valuation nobody's actually agreed to pay. That's not a done deal, that's a waiting game, and United know it. Football plays team talk. So why does this actually matter beyond just one midfielder? Because it exposes something bigger about how United are operating this summer. They're not chasing one name and hoping it works out. They're running parallel tracks. While the Scott situation simmers, United are also deep in conversations over Real Madrid's Aurelien Tchouameni, with reports suggesting Jose Mourinho has already reached his own decision on whether the France international should be allowed to leave for Liverpool or United. Two elite-level targets running side by side, both unresolved, both expensive, both capable of collapsing the moment a release clause gets triggered somewhere else. Keep that tension in mind, because it's exactly why United needed a completely different kind of signing to balance the risk. And that brings us to the story most fans haven't even clocked yet. Because while Scott and Tchouameni dominate the headlines, something else has been quietly moving in the background for months, and it barely made a ripple. United have been tracking a teenage midfielder for the better part of a year. Patiently, without fanfare, waiting on nothing more complicated than a birthday. Deals like that don't trend, but they're often the ones that age the best 3 years down the line, long after everyone's forgotten the transfer fee arguments over Scott and Tchouameni entirely. That's the layer United are building underneath the headline chasing cheap, patient, low pressure. Developing quietly while the expensive names fight for oxygen in the back pages. Smart clubs run both tracks at once. Spend big where you have to, build young where you can, and let the two strategies cover for each other's weaknesses. Now let's swing back to the midfield saga, because there's a piece of this puzzle that changes the entire picture. Felix Nmecha, Borussia Dortmund's German international, currently playing some of the best football of his career at the World Cup, and he's just told one Premier League club exactly where he stands. According to Bild, Nmecha has rebuffed Newcastle's advances because he would rather join Manchester United or Manchester City instead. Read that again. A player being chased by a club with serious financial muscle behind them, and he's looking straight past them toward Old Trafford. That's not nothing. That's a statement about where his career is actually pointed. But here's where the numbers get messy, and this is exactly the kind of gap that makes transfer windows so unpredictable. Bild's report suggests Dortmund value Nmecha at around £103 million, but other sources indicate Dortmund could actually be willing to sell him for closer to £86 million. £17 million of daylight between the public number and the real one. That's not a typo, that's transfer theatre. Talk big publicly. Negotiate smaller behind closed doors, and let the World Cup form do the rest of the work. Every assist, every strong performance in front of a global audience pushes that price higher by the day. United know the clock is ticking, because the longer they wait, the more expensive Nmecha becomes. And that 86 million figure could be ancient history by August. Team talk, team talk. So now picture the full board United are actually playing on. Ederson already signed. Fernandes lost to Tottenham. Scott tangled up in a release clause negotiation with 4 clubs circling. Tchouameni waiting on a decision out of Real Madrid. Nmecha watching his price climb every time Germany take the field. And underneath all of it, a teenager developing quietly with zero pressure attached. That's not a simple rebuild. That's a genuine multi-front chess match, with United trying to land 2, maybe 3 of these names before rival clubs force the price even higher. And running parallel to every single one of those threads is Rashford, still unresolved, still waiting on his own tournament to end before he even tells the club what he wants. One delayed decision sitting right in the middle of an already chaotic window. That's the part that should worry United fans the most. Not any single deal falling through, but the sheer number of moving parts all needing to land at roughly the same time. One collapse anywhere in this chain, and the whole plan needs reshuffling. But here's what should actually make you optimistic if you support this club. United aren't panicking through any of this. They missed on 3 midfield targets in a row, and instead of freezing, they had contingency names ready within days. They got publicly rejected by Bournemouth over Scott, and instead of walking away, they stayed in the conversation, waiting on a release clause structure that could still open the door. They're watching Nmecha's price climb in real time, and rather than overpaying now, they're letting Dortmund's public number and private number collide on their own terms. That's not chaos. That's patience dressed up as chaos, because from the outside, every single one of these stories looks like a separate crisis. From the inside, it's one club running several tracks at once, betting that not every deal needs to land, just enough of them. So, let's pull this all together properly. Rashford's future stays frozen until the World Cup ends, with reports genuinely split on whether he wants Barcelona or whether United actually want to keep him. Scott remains a release clause and a decision away from 4 different clubs, with Bournemouth holding firm at around 80 million, while Liverpool's Iraola connection lurks in the background. Nmecha has already picked United and City over Newcastle in his own head, but the real fee is still a £17 million mystery waiting to be solved. Tchouameni sits above all of it, a Real Madrid decision away from reshaping the entire midfield plan. And quietly, beneath every single one of those stories, a teenage signing is settling into a new country without anyone outside the club paying much attention at all. 4 storylines, 1 transfer window, all connected, all still unresolved, and all capable of flipping completely within days. So, what do you think? Does Rashford's future get decided by what happens with Mainu, or is Barcelona still the more likely ending here? Is Alex Scott actually worth 80 million for a club still weighing up Tchouaméni at the same time? And is Nmecha the smarter by the moment his price settles, or does the World Cup spotlight price United out entirely? Let me know in the comments below. If you want the moment any of these 4 stories actually moves, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because this window is nowhere near finished. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.